Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's really great to see all the recognizable faces that are out in the crowd. Although I have to tell you, most of you look a lot better now than you do on your Twitter photos that we've been so intimately or become so intimately familiar with over the past few days. Wow. Can you believe the passion that Iowans have for the Cyhawk series and the rivalry that exists between the University of Iowa and Iowa State University? If there was ever a doubt that there was passion amongst our fans and amongst Iowans for this event, I think we have clearly put it to bed over the weekend. Their passion is very, very strong. You know, it's a reason why Iowa Corn signed on with the Cyhawk series earlier this year. We did so because of that passion and the people behind the passion, and we wanted to be a part of it. Many of our members here at Iowa Corn attended one of these great institutes and are very proud to be either a Cyclone or a Hawkeye, just as much as they're proud to be an Iowa corn grower. As you all know, based on the attendance that's here today, we have received an overwhelming amount of feedback on the new trophy that was unveiled last week at the Iowa State Fair. We've had both positive and negative comments, but I would be remiss to not mention that the overwhelming amount of feedback has been negative. We, and I mean collectively we, Iowa State University, the University of Iowa, and the Iowa Corn Growers Association knew that when we set out to recreate a trophy that has the status for a game like the Cyhawk series rivalry does, that any type of change to the trophy could meet with some resistance, potentially even some controversy. And that has happened. And much of the controversy, of course, has been good-natured in its negativity. Some of it's been a little mean-spirited, if you will. The important thing is that we've been monitoring what fans across the state and around the country have been saying. We're listening, and we think with that we want to be able to say we're impressed with how proud Iowans are of their athletics and their universities in this series. And because we've listened, we've heard you loud and clear. People want something different than what was proposed last week. They want something different specifically for the football game. And we, quite frankly, we as Iowa corn growers and the farmers that we represent, we want folks to be happy with that trophy. So today, we are announcing that we are changing the trophy as was unveiled last week. And we are going to open up a process that is going to allow Iowans, the fans, to decide what that trophy should be like. Based on what we've heard, we're going to develop several concepts with a lot of the input that we have received from all of the feedback, and then we're going to let the fans choose one of those concepts from which we can then develop a trophy from. The new Cyhawk football trophy, we trust, will be truly something the fans will embrace. Now again, we're not going to please everybody because there's going to be some very, very different opinions out there. But here's some examples of some things we might try. These are suggestions that have come from to us via Twitter, Facebook, emails, etc. One of the ideas, for example, people said, well, where's Herky and Cy? It would have been real simple. Why didn't you just simply put Herky and Cy together with an athletic ball in the middle, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it might be? Could be one of the ideas. Some others have suggested, well, what about honoring two football greats, Niall Kinnick and Jack Trice? What if we put them on the trophy? That could be one of the concepts that we put out there. The bottom line is this. Iowa's corn growers are involved in this in a very positive, proactive way. We want Iowa's fans and Iowa State's fans to also be pleased with the trophy, and that's why we're going to help put it into their hands to decide. I want to also add that given the time frame, we just unveiled this last Friday, and this is Tuesday, there are a lot of details to be worked out on how we would go about doing something like this. We are developing a plan for an interim trophy on September 10th at the big game. We don't have all the details worked out, so we're going to ask for the fans' patience as you allow us to do this in the right way, which means take the time to make sure we can roll it out and get it correct. And in terms of the process of how you'll have the opportunity to vote, you'll be hearing more about that, and in the end of the press conference, I'll be able to give you some specific sites where you all can go to find out how to learn more and take part in the trophy redo.
My question is, when the trophy was displayed, I'm sure unveiled to the schools before it was unveiled to the public, was there any feeling that there would be negative reaction to it? Did you guys have any idea that there would be any kind of blowback, let alone the blowback that there was?
The University of Iowa certainly, as I said, we were engaged in the process, and we had approved the proofs, and we knew going in the reality of this process. You weren't going to please everyone with one trophy. You commit to an idea, you execute that idea the best you can, and then you watch to see the reaction. We aspired to do something above a football trophy. We aspired to celebrate Iowans and the characteristics of Iowans, and perhaps we missed the mark. We learned from that.
How much of this was fan feedback, and how much of this decision was based on the media possibly getting things fired up at all?
You want to take that one? I was going to hand it to Craig, but you volunteered.
I shouldn't have done that. I think I'll answer the question this way, and this would be the honest answer. The process probably revealed the fact that college football has matured to a point where trophies that are introduced today versus trophies that were introduced 50 or 60 years ago are more difficult, more of a challenge. We live in a wired country now, 24/7, 365. It's a wonderful place for freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, and I embrace that. But I think it would be really difficult today to introduce a wooden turtle as a trophy, which actually exists in the Big Ten Conference. It's a different ballgame. But again, we knew that going in. We weren't blind to the fact that there would be very strong opinion and that you wouldn't satisfy everyone. But it's clearly a different environment today because of our communications systems that are available to everyone versus as recently as a decade ago.
I think your question was, do we react to the fans or the media? I think, and probably Craig's group was monitoring as much as anybody as they were getting the brunt of the action, and primarily from fans. I'm not naive enough to think that some of the polls you ran certainly encouraged them to participate in the process, but ultimately it was just the overwhelming nature of all the feedback we got, but mostly from fans, I would say.
What I think is most important from Iowa Corn's perspective is that we were clearly monitoring our Twitter accounts, our Facebook accounts. We were listening to what average Iowans were telling our board of directors that are out there in the countryside, and it was overwhelming. And so, you know, as was mentioned earlier, the first trophy missed the mark. I think there's a tremendous amount of value in what we tried to do for the Cy-Hawk series, thinking deeper about how something other than just a football symbol could work. But at the end of the day, we really did listen to the fans, and that's why we've come up with wanting to make sure we go back to the fans and say, what do you then want it to be? If this is the people's game, it should also then be the people's trophy, and we're going to let the public help us decide that.
I ask this of all three. You mentioned at the beginning that some of the negative reaction was good-spirited, but you said some of it wasn't. How mean was it? I mean, what were some of the things you were hearing? And then I want to address that to both gentlemen from Iowa and Iowa State. What were you guys hearing on the negative side, you know, from your standpoints?
You know, this is a family press conference, which means that there are many things that were said to us organizationally and to us personally that there's no way I'm going to repeat in front of all of these cameras. We can take the criticism. That's not a problem. If we couldn't stand being out there publicly and talking about the things that we do as Iowa's corn growers, then we shouldn't be here. But we are here, and we can take good-natured criticism. Some of it, though, of course, not appropriate, and that happens. And as Rick mentioned earlier, I think it's very fair. We all embrace freedom of speech and the ability to put your opinion out there. Honestly, though, the things that I listened to the most were not those who ranted and raved and were crude and et cetera. It was those folks who said, you know, I'm somebody who doesn't normally comment on this, and I'm not particularly fond of what you're doing. Would you please reconsider? Those things meant something to me because I realized that it wasn't just somebody who was spouting off. And by the way, we appreciate all those who spouted off in whatever form they chose to do it. Again, this is the people. We want this to be the People's Trophy, and so again, I won't repeat what some of it was, but it wasn't all that pleasant. I can tell you that.
I think, Larry, what concerned me the most was the mischaracterization of Iowa corn, and perhaps that was a byproduct of a lack of understanding that it was a collaborative effort. The Iowa Corn Growers Association, over the last few days, shouldered way too much of the burden for this responsibility, and that's a great measure. You keep hearing that theme today. This was a collaboration, and as I reviewed things, that just was kind of unfair and really over the top. And again, to Craig's point, the three of us representing the organizations we represent, we're pretty familiar with criticism. It just comes with the territory. It's great, though, because feedback's important. Fair criticism is great. Everyone's going to question play calling. Everyone's going to question team uniforms. You name it, there's an opinion on it. But when it crosses the line with respect to a tremendous organization that's driven by great people, that includes great people, that's where I was most affected.
I don't think I can add much beyond what Rick just said. The real negative and hated commentary seemed to be more directed at Iowa corn, which was unfortunate and not appropriate. But beyond that, I think it was standard to some degree to what we normally receive, and you've seen it by looking in the chat rooms where anonymous folks have strong opinions, and that was pretty typical on this case too. Two primary sources that you can go to, or actually there's four places that you can go, I should mention. Obviously, you can go to the websites of both Iowa State University and the University of Iowa. That's where we'll be posting information about how fans and folks can participate. We also have an IowaCorn-CyHawkSeries.com website, and that will be following the series throughout the course of the year. But initially, of course, now we'll be looking at posting information on how fans can get involved. And you can also link from our website, which is at iowacorn.org. So those are the primary sources online to get lots of information. And again, I would ask that folks be patient with us as we collectively work through a lot of the detail on how this is going to unfold, and we will certainly keep you all posted. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here today.